Hi everybody, I'm Andy Murray from WhatCulture.com.
And I'm Adam Nicholas from WhatCulture.com, here to bring you all of today's news, including an update for NXT TakeOver Portland's card.
I'm going to tell you all about AEW potentially signing Brian Cage, Brodie Lee, and Lance Archer.
Ooh, Andrade finally breaks his silence after getting his 30-day suspension.
MVP is done with WWE already.
WWE stars could be set for more time off in 2020.
And I'm going to tell you how much Edge is going to be making with his shiny new WWE deal.
This is the news.
That was very nice and a lot better than I do.
Look at that. Very
Excellent
good stuff.
You'd think Wilborn was in the room.
Well,
Rest in peace,
Rest
Adam
in peace.
Wilborn.
Don't say that.
Anyway.
Rest in power.
He's got one more flight to get through.
Yeah, that's true.
Murderous. We're going to kick things off with a little bit of talk about WrestleMania 36. The card is seemingly coming together backstage. We know we're getting Brock versus Drew. We're probably getting Ronda, and not Ronda, Becky versus Shayna.
Well, you've told them now.
Yeah,
That's it.
I've spoiled the story. We might be getting Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley, Roman Reigns, Bray Wyatt. Exciting stuff across the board, but two major stars who are not currently scheduled to be there in Tampa are, like I've just spoiled, Ronda Rousey and The Undertaker. This is according to Big Daddy Dave, the swole wrestling journalism overlord, in this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter. He has updates on both. With regards to Ronda, he just straight up says, Ronda Rousey's not wrestling at WrestleMania 36. Fair enough.
Thanks for playing, Dave.
With regards to The Undertaker, he's almost certainly not going to have a match either, and there is currently nothing for him on the show at all. However, there are thought to be some negotiations going on backstage. The Undertaker may have a role on the card if they can come to some kind of agreement. Maybe he'll just show up and do a chokeslam or something. But either way, you know, it's the biggest show of the year. Ronda was in the main event last year. Undertaker wasn't there at all. Showed up the next night, killed Elias. But on the biggest show of the year, you want the biggest stars in the company, right? So it's a bit of a shame that both of those, could potentially miss the show.
Indeed. I mean, there's obviously the speculation about Ronda. I think people will be excited for that match, as much as it might not be the one I'd want to see. That tag or potential tag match you could have had with Charlotte Flair might have been interesting. Undertaker is what it is. As a person who's been to a few WrestleManias now, I would have been gutted if he hadn't been on any of the ones I went to, because you want to see it. It's The Undertaker. But I guess it's going to have to happen sometime. And he already wasn't on the show last year. Yeah. So maybe this is going to become a pattern. I don't know.
Yeah, time's just ticking away. But the thing is, like, you kind of want to experience that ring entrance, don't you?
You do. It's something else. If you're there in person, like, you might see it on telly a million times, but when you're there in person, whew, yeah, me.
I mean, this year's Raw after WrestleMania was the first time I'd seen it live, and I've been really cynical about The Undertaker. I mean, he's old, he's running, the mystique's gone, and blah, blah, blah. But as soon as that gong hit, I was like, oh my God.
Well,
this is the best.
You can see the difference, because I was there for Florida when he retired.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing. I was kind of happy with that. Then he came out and wrote, Andy Murray, who'd never seen him before, was very excited. I was like, yeah, all right then, I guess we'll do this again. There's 10 minutes of the show, I'm not getting back.
It was good as well, because I was sitting next to Mr. Simon Miller, and we were both in a bit of a grump, because the people behind us were total wankers, shouting and screaming stupid stuff in our ears the whole show. My massive ears picked that up very loudly. And then The Undertaker came out, and I was totally into it. Anyway, we've got a massive tangent here.
We have.
Bottom line, it's a shame they won't be there, but who knows, maybe they'll wrestle each other.
Maybe they'll wrestle each other. Hey, we've got some updates for the NXT TakeOver Portland card. Maybe he's on that card. I mean, he's not. He's not, but he could have been. Maybe next time for either Ronda or Undertaker. But some people who will be on the card were announced last night. So obviously, at all good takeovers, there's always a good big main event for the NXT Championship. Now, obviously, that's going to get confusing these days, because that could be either the women's or men's title. But nevertheless, this one is the men's match, and last night we got a little update with regards to that. Adam Cole will be facing off against Tommaso Ciampa for the NXT Championship. That was a lovely little segment on last night's episode of NXT, where Ciampa came down after beating the Undisputed Era up and all this other stuff. Adam Cole came out, they had a fight. Adam Cole went through a table, and Ciampa managed to sign a contract for a match against Cole, and then put some blood all over it because his head had split up. Bray Wyatt, are you watching? Because that is how you do a contract signing in blood. The other match that we have found out will be happening at TakeOver Portland is the Bruiserweights. They won the Dusty Classic last night, which means they will go on to face Fish and O'Reilly for the NXT Tag Team Championships at TakeOver Portland. Andy Murray, two wonderful matches, I think we can agree.
It's the card is coming together really spectacularly. It's another card that is going to pop the internet daft. It's another card that is going to immediately, be hailed as one of the shows of the year. You can tell from looking at these things, always deliver, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe the exception, all right, War Games last year. Yeah, they've had a couple where they've been hampered by a couple of flubbed matches, but at the end of the day, man, it's the brand you can trust. It's the brand that when it hits the big stage, it's going to give you what you expect, and that is the NXT style at 100% full octane. It's a ridiculous card. I'm looking forward to seeing it all go down. And yeah, like you say, Tommaso Ciampa showing Bray Wyatt how it's done.
And fascinating to see how they've managed to get a good tag match out of a division that arguably doesn't exist in NXT, which is fascinating. But there you go, 2 great matches for you, and hopefully more to come soon.
We're going to speak a little bit about AEW and their potential signings now. We're not going to talk about last night's Dynamite because honestly it was really boring. So let's talk about who they might be adding to their talent pool.
I can hear them messaging already now. They're going to be angry about that, aren't they?
Tony's going to cut my check. Sorry, brother. It was a fine show. It just wasn't the most exciting. But 3 names that we've heard linked with AEW in recent weeks and months: Brian Cage, Lance Archer, Brodie Lee / Luke Harper. These fellas are at varying stages with the company, according to Dave Meltzer in this week's Wrestling Observer newsletter. So with regards to Brodie Lee, Luke Harper, whatever you want to call him, he is expected to sign with AEW. His WWE no-compete clause expires on the 12th of February. That's when he can legally go somewhere else and start appearing on TV. However, the current plan is for Mr. Lee to debut in Rochester, New York, his hometown, on the 18th of March. So he's going to come out, he's going to kick some little squirt in the face, and he's going to get the best pop. He's going to get an awesome hometown pop. It's going to be really cool. Can't wait to see that go down. The other guy, Lance Archer, Dave was able to confirm Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated's report from last week, stating that high-level talks had taken place between AEW and Archer, who's a free agent, despite being on the New Japan roster. And he says that while this thing is far from set in stone, talks are far enough down the line that specific angles have been discussed, so that's very encouraging indeed. And for your third man here, Brian Cage, who was linked with AEW after his Impact Wrestling deal seemingly expired, well, unfortunately, he's got torn biceps at the moment. He underwent surgery on the 27th of January. He's going to be out for 7, 8, 9 months, that kind of ballpark. That obviously puts things on ice. Shame there, really, because Brian Cage is a pretty obvious guy that AEW would want to scoop up, but either way, 3 big, beefy boys here, beef mode engaged. Shout out to Eric Vasquez on the barbecue.
# beef mode.
And the roster really needs some beef. Yeah. I'm excited to see these guys potentially come through. I like all 3 of them. I love Archer. This could be awesome.
These are, I think, well, I'll talk about the 2 gets, I guess we'll call them for the time being, because Cage being injured. But in terms of Brodie Lee and Lance Archer, man, what a set of additions that is to a brand that, as we've seen, someone like Jake Hager stands out on there like a sore thumb. Luchasaurus, the 2 big guys. Imagine adding a couple more. I am fascinated to see what Brodie Lee gets to do on this show with this company, because a guy who we can arguably say has been constantly put into some sort of stable or tag team, and he never gets to just do Brodie Lee or Luke Harper as he was in WWE. I am very excited about that. And Lance Archer, the man is a lunatic in all of the best possible ways. As a guy who hasn't had tons of exposure with him, but every match of his I've seen, in particular that one with John Moxley at Wrestle Kingdom, that was insane. More of that, please. Good, very good gets for AEW.
I just want to put Lance Archer over a little bit more here as well, because this guy, man, what he did in 2019, the guy comes back from a serious back injury. I think he had a broken back,
wasn't it? Yeah, broken back.
He's over 40 years old, and you think coming back from that, he's a big guy, maybe he's going to slow down a bit and be like a lumbering power, if he can even wrestle again. Nah, the guy's doing rope walks. He's rope walking 3/4 of the way around the goddamn ring like he's Rey Fenix, and then taking flip bumps off that. But on top of that, he's also an absolutely terrifying psychopath of a man. He's got a ridiculous power game, and to prove he's really 3-dimensional, he got a goddamn claw hold, an ancient relic of wrestling history over in New Japan in 2019. Lance Archer's going to kick some serious tail.
All I can say is, the last time I remember Lance Archer, before the boom, before his return and boom in 2019, he was wrestling in a tag team with David Boy Smith on the Wrestle Kingdom card. Literally, it was a nothing match, and it didn't do anything for me particularly, and I haven't heard of him since. And when the lads were bringing him back up, I was like, that's the same guy, because literally it's so fascinating to see. The match he had with Ospreay in the G1, oh man, just top stuff.
The same guy who
top,
was in
top
TNA playing that little guitar,
Yeah.
rock and rave.
Oh, God, is that him?
And he was in WWE as like Vance Archer for
Yeah,
like
I remember
a cup
that
of coffee.
Vance Archer stuff.
Good on him, man. I
Yeah.
love stories like this. I think he's 42. Might be on the verge of scoring the biggest contract of his career. Love to see it.
Love seeing superstars do well. And speaking of superstars who have been doing well, let's talk a little bit about Andrade, because obviously the man is the current US champion for WWE, and it's fair to say he's been going through one of his best spells to date, getting pushed like a very hot commodity that he is. Sadly, the man has obviously now got a 30-day suspension for violating WWE's wellness policy. Now, up until this point, we haven't really had any comments from Andrade regarding that, and more or less about what it actually could be. They're usually quite quiet about these things. They don't tend to spill too many details. But Andrade has broken his silence with regards to his suspension. Nothing particularly specific about the whys and the whats, but just posted a thing on Instagram yesterday that said, never quit, obviously in his home, I was going to call it Mexican, Spanish, I guess.
Tongue.
Nah, Spanish it would be, yeah. And then in English as well, it said, never quit because things got tough. Remember where you come from and where you are going, which obviously is fairly cryptic to say the least, but nice to see that he's finally said a word about it, and hopefully, whatever it is, it sounds like he's taking it on the chin.
Yeah.
And is hopefully going to end up, well, turning it into a positive for himself. It is interesting to note here, Dave Meltzer mentioned in the Wrestling Observer that the call to not take the US title off him was made by Paul Heyman. Now, obviously, we've seen in the past when someone's violated a wellness policy, they get buried, like really brutally buried, titles taken off them, losing to guys that never normally would. This didn't happen for Andrade. We saw him, obviously, he's been written off TV after getting the Hammerlock DDT done to him by Humberto Carrillo on Monday Night Raw. Still the champion, so that's good news for him, I would say. Obviously, I guess that means maybe Vega will go off telly with him as well for the time being. But there's obviously stock in the guy. He's been doing really well. And I hope this doesn't end up leaving a nasty blemish on what is becoming a very promising career in WWE.
Yeah, I think the 30-day suspension is probably enough, right? I like the approach. I like Paul Heyman going, look, mate, you've messed up here. You're going to serve your time. But don't worry. Like, the suspension's enough. That's your punishment. When you come back, we'll see where we're at, because I think you are a potential money-drawing star. Love this.
Yeah, and just to add to that, on the 27th of January is when WWE were first made aware of Andrade's violation of the policy. So that means it will expire around about February 26th. So that means the next time we could potentially see Andrade on WWE TV will be the March 2nd edition of Monday Night Raw.
Absolutely will. He's the United States champion, but a former United States champion has Instagrammed that he's done with the company after coming back in the Royal Rumble. MVP's, he's gone. He had his match with Rey Mysterio on Raw. That was the last one. This is kind of in line with what Dave Meltzer reported over the weekend when he said MVP's going to do 1 or 2 more dates. Maybe some of us might have thought he was going to stick around a little bit longer, but he's gone. Here's what he posted last night. One for the history books. My final WWE match took place on Raw against my close friend, Rey Mysterio. A great way to close that chapter. The end of my career looms larger every month. It's been one hell of a ride. I'm not finished yet, but soon, very soon. Thank you, WWE and the WWE Universe, for all the love. What an amazing week I've had. And again, good for MVP. Love that he got to have this little run. He Instagrammed over the weekend saying, this isn't for me, this isn't for you, this is for my son. Tweet a little picture with him, nice. Ray, and his son. Nice stuff, man. Like, you know, the guy's coming towards the end of his run, as he says. It's cool that WWE were able to fit him into those short-term plans, give him this little match with Ray, put him in the Rumble. It's nice stuff.
Absolutely, and to be honest, it's nice to see him having such a smart mindset about it. Not like thinking, oh, well, maybe I should stay with the company and try and get along with it. He doesn't need that. He got the payoff. His son got to see him in the Royal Rumble and have a match against Rey Mysterio on Monday Night Raw. I mean, it was a great little thing. You wouldn't want it to turn sour, would you?
Exactly.
And WWE have a really painful way of sometimes doing that when it comes to these sort of things. Let's talk a little bit about the WWE talent, because obviously we know that they work some crazy schedules. That's probably putting it quite lightly, actually. Obviously, with all the live shows that they do, the tape shows they do, and then the live events where they go around the world and all of the various places. Well, apparently in 2020 they could be set to get a little bit of a respite, which is good news if you're a talent at WWE. They're deciding to cut back on the number of live events that the company do, which Jesus, I'm amazed it's 2020. It's taken us that long to figure this one out. As it stands, the usual rate is 1 taped show and 3 house shows every week, and that's obviously not including when we have pay-per-views, which obviously then adds up depending on how good you are and how many different cards you're on. But at the moment for February, this has actually come from our writer on WhatCulture.com, Andrew Pollard,
Hey,
who took a look at WWE's schedule and noticed that it's a little bit more lax than usual, which shout out to you, Andrew Pollard, for getting that. If anybody else wants to take that news elsewhere, you are allowed to have it. Go on.
Quote the man, though.
Quote the man, though. Make sure you give him
respect.
the quote. Basically, for February that's coming up, there are currently 10 shows for talent, which is obviously, that's a much smaller number than what they would be doing. And as of March, they've got 14 events, and that's obviously a little bit more, but we're talking about live events. And across the board, this is the build-up to WrestleMania, so there's obviously going to be a bit more stuff going on. But that's nice to see. And hopefully that continues moving forward and isn't just a weird blip on the radar.
It makes all the sense in the world. The road schedule, how grueling it is on the record 1,000 times over. Not just like, you know, if a wrestler's in the ring and they're hurting their body and putting themselves through a physically demanding sport, but the time on the road, not giving you a body time to recover because you're cooped up in a little car, maybe finding it hard to put workouts and proper nutrition in there and stuff. It's a difficult schedule. I think it's probably the main reason why WWE's injury list is always so long. Glad to hear this. We've seen guys like Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, Randy Orton secure contracts with fewer dates in recent years, and if that's going to become the norm, hey, I think that's a really good thing, particularly with house show attendances and revenues not what they were. And
you'd like to think as well they could plan these events with the idea of helping the talent out, rather than just putting this. I know you need the top guys and gals on the cards, but let's be honest, you don't need them every single night. And I know it's not what it used to be, trying to sell the house out and all that kind of thing. It's a little bit dated in terms when it comes to the house shows, and I think they've got enough talent on that roster to rotate and make sure everybody's fit and healthy.
Absolutely. And let's pivot over to our final story of the day. Edge, WWE, new contract details have emerged.
Yeah, boy.
Not a whole lot to pick apart here, but good for the man. He's earning big bank, according to Alex McCarthy of Talk Sport.
There he is.
Here in the UK. Edge, his 3-year deal is worth a cool $3 million a year. He is going to be Scrooge McDuckin and indeed clocking. On top of this, McCarthy writes that Edge is currently on roughly 5 matches a year and 25 appearances a year. Man, that's a hell of a deal.
I love this. I'm still buzzing off the fact he came back at the Royal Rumble. And look, he's not daft, is he? He knows he needs to be careful, much like the kind of the Ciampa of situation where he didn't want to go to the main roster because he wanted to do what he could do with the limited schedule and stuff. I'm all for this. And his safety, above everything else, has to come first. But Edge is back, so who cares? As long as he's safe and healthy. I say this as he was stretchered out on Monday Night Raw after getting a beat down off Randy Orton. But they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
this is good to hear.
Good stuff, and you love having Adam Copeland back in the business.
That, man.
It's beautiful.
So good.
Anyway, thanks for joining us today. Things are getting a little long in the tooth here, so we are going to skip the usual segments at the end. I apologise profusely. Twitter questions.
I'll be telling Adam Wilborn about this.
He's not
going to be happy.
Yep. Sorry, Wilborn. Sorry to the Twitter questioners.
You're making him very upset.
Oh.
Hey? Because he's in Jamaica on his honeymoon. Hey!
You can follow us on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. Hashtag This Is the News. You can follow Adam Nicholas on Twitter at
It's Adam Nicholas, and you can follow my lovely friend here, Andy Murray, on Twitter.
You can follow me at Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Husky. The dog or the slight fatness. Take your pick. They both work. I like dogs. Don't like being fat, but you know, both are realities.
You're not fat, mate.
Thank you.
You're not fat at all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.